So with the introduction of new enemies in 2.5 and some nice lore bits from A and Enjo, we actually have a decent number of enemy types now that belong to the Abyss or at least has some affiliation to them. Back in 1.0, the most the Abyss are associated with are Hilly Churls and Abyss Mages, which made them lacking in the fear factor, but now there are wolves, soldiers, mages, lords, lectors, and heralds, and I thought it'd be pretty interesting to talk about them and their possible army structure, as well as some previous lore bits that may indicate those creatures appearing before. But as always, take this with a grain of salt because this is mostly just for fun. We're not really striving for extreme lore accuracy here, but rather what I think an organized Abyss army under the Abyss Princess might look like. So first things first, which enemies are associated with the Abyss? Well, the archive already tells us that. But it's not limited to these, as sometimes the Abyss can command other beings such as Hilly Churls, even up to Lava Churls. However, do know that there is some discrepancy regarding the Abyss Order and the Abyss itself. For the most part, it seems that these two things, while they do work together, are quite different. If you look at the wiki page for the Abyss, it has two separate entries for the Abyss and the Abyss Order. How I mostly look at it is that the Abyss Order are remnants of Khaenri'ah, while the Abyss is a Miasma-like eldritch unknown horror that has its own followers. Thing is, Genshin intentionally makes the term Abyss confusing as possible. They make it mean a bunch of stuff like the Abyss Order as an organization, the Abyss as a location, or the Abyss, which is this Miasma-like god entity, and many other interpretations of what the Abyss might be. So for the creatures that we'll talk about, just know that while some of them might not be directly under the sibling or the Abyss Order, they're still part of the Abyss as a whole. We also won't be talking about the other denizens of the Abyss that we don't really know much about, like Child's Master, who might or might not even be associated with the Abyss Order. So keep that in mind. So let's start with the creatures that are definitely under the Abyss Order and report directly to the Traveler's sibling. First are the Abyss Mages, who can also get Hilly Churls to do their bidding, and some but not all Hilly Churls used to be people of Khaenri'ah, though it seems like those Hilly Churls might have forgotten that already. Anyway, the Abyss Mages of course are part of the Abyss Order. While they can make use of other monsters and even Ruin Guards, they're probably one of the weakest members of the Order. They do minor schemes here and there, but they're pretty much easy to deal with even without the Traveler's interventions. After the Abyss Mages though, we have the Heralds and Lectors, who are higher in the Abyss Order hierarchy. However, it doesn't seem like all of them report directly to the Traveler's sibling, as Enjo seems to be doing things on his own, as he remarks here.
殿下のそばをうろちょろしてる奴らとは違って、俺はいつだってどうでもいいことにこだわる。さて、時間稼ぎはこれで十分だ。もう会うこともないだろう。俺は先に失礼させ。
However, we do see a herald directly serve our sibling back in an Archon quest. So, these heralds and lectors may have some freedom in their servitude. Heralds and lectors are very dangerous in that they have more control over the schemes and situations and are pretty smart when it comes to dealing with subterfuge. But these are pretty much the only creatures we know that are directly in the Abyss Order. Because after them, there are Abyss creatures who seem to be following the Greater Abyss instead of just the Abyss Order, and even have their own hierarchy. Also, most of them are creations of the Alchemist Gold, intentional or accidental. Included here are the Rift Hounds, who serve the Golden Wolf Lord, and the new Shadow Husks, who seem to be directly summoned through the Void Realm. These Shadow Husks are also very powerful. They were able to easily fight against the Watatsumi army squads, and they might be the ones mentioned in Mondstadt's lore with the Bloodstained Knight and the Knights of Favonius, when they fought shadowy monsters during the Cataclysm, which also ended up in tragedy. So it seems that these Shadow Husks are the main soldiers of the Abyss army. Interestingly, they also have roles and seemingly work together. Sadly, I couldn't get footage of them because they apparently don't respawn after you do the event, or at least I couldn't find them anymore. But just looking at them, they definitely have their own roles in an army: ranged troops, frontline troops, and even support. However, as powerful as these Shadow Husks are, it doesn't seem like they can be summoned freely. Miasma, or the Fog of Darkness, needs to be active for them to even appear. Going back to Mondstadt's Bloodstained lore, we do know that the land was covered in darkness, and in the Three Realms event, as well as in Azuma 500 years ago, they were also covered with Miasma. Enjo made sure that Miasma covers Enkanomiya, so it might be a requirement for the Shadow Husks to even be summoned. Once the Miasma is set though, how exactly are the Shadow Husks summoned from the void? Well, A gives us a probable lore to that with the Rift Hounds. According to A, the hounds appear as a prelude to a much larger attack. It seems that the Rift Hounds are scouts for the main force, and before the main force arrives, they aim to weaken through strategic attacks, then open up rifts for the main army to go through. In addition to that, Rift Hounds also have a lord and might be a strategist in the form of the Golden Wolf Lord. According to the archive, the Golden Wolf Lord learned from past mistakes, and they seem to alter their strategy accordingly. But among all the Abyss creatures, the ones who do the most damage are probably the Heralds and the Lectors. They seem to have different tasks within the Abyss and take on those tasks by themselves. The first time we ever met a Herald, they stole a statue of Venti in Mondstadt and used it as an altar of sorts. But weirdly enough, we never got a conclusion on what they were actually trying to do other than spread some sort of corruption. Probably the Miasma. Maybe they wanted to summon the Shadow Husks in Mondstadt as well. Although we found the statue in Liyue, a lot of the story stuff involved around Mondstadt. So maybe Mondstadt was their target and they just needed the statue outside of the purview of Mondstadt's knights. Since we now know that wolves are now roaming around Wolvendom, and the Herald even wanted to get rid of Andreas, probably to ensure the wolves' safety. But even that would pale in comparison to the damage a Lector could do like Enjo. Although it seems that their main objective is to find secrets of Celestia and to try and find proof that they're invaders of another world. But that's a whole nother topic we aren't gonna get into in this video. Instead, we can see what else Enjo was able to do, and that was to bring corruption and miasma to Enkanomiya. Seems like they are well versed in spells and rituals in order to summon the Abyss. But not only that, as a Lector, he is able to take the form of a human, which kinda makes him the perfect spy if he wasn't so quirky as a human. Lastly, one more thing that isn't in the archive is the miasma itself. The miasma is toxic to the creatures of the Light Realm and is intoxicating to the creatures of the Void Realm, but it seems that it can also drive creatures of the human realm into madness. We know in Inazuma's lore that the yokai went crazy after being enveloped in the blood and fog of the Abyss. The Valen was also a little bit more susceptible once he got poisoned by the Abyss. If we also assume that the Delusions use some form of miasma to enable their powers, then humans are also somewhat susceptible to it but seem to have a higher resistance than other creatures. So how would an Abyss invasion begin if they were to organize themselves against a nation? Well, first I think a Herald or Lector would infiltrate the nation they want to attack, taking note of their defenses and looking for a way to bring miasma to the area. While they're doing this, they relay weak points in the defense and corruptible entities, which are then exploited by the Abyss mages who use the local creatures and Rift Hounds. The Abyss mages make use of anything they feel can be corrupted, be it Helichurls, Ruin Guards, or even Guardian monsters like Dvalin or even Osial. They would also seek out information that can be useful to the Abyss, like books and ruins. While they do that, Rift Hounds would set up a base of operations by summoning the Golden Wolf Lord. Nowadays, they set up in remote places hidden from view. Abyss mages would use local monsters and even Ruin Guards to distract the defenses, allowing Rift Hounds to spread out around the area, and once a Lector or Herald brings corruption and miasma through the area, the Rift Hounds would open rifts and summon the Husks. The Miasma would also turn non-human enemies into allies and create chaos in the battles. But the main goal of the Abyss is not to destroy the nation, but rather to slay the Archon of whichever land they're attacking. Once the Archon is slain, the land will completely fall into darkness. But of course, we may still get more enemy types in the future. What I really want to see is cavalry. Since we know Mondstadt has a cavalry, maybe we'll also get Abyss cavalry in the future as an enemy type. All in all though, I can definitely see how the Abyss could be a terrible problem for the nations of Teyvat. And even Inazuma, who had an organized military during the Cataclysm, had difficulties defeating them. Honestly, this is kinda what I wanted to see when we had the war with Watatsumi versus Narukami, but you know, that didn't pan out well enough. Thing is, if the Abyss were just doing simple monster invasions, I don't think the Knights of Favonius or the Narukami would have had problems fighting against them. But if the Abyss is an organized army, then that would be very different and be much more difficult to deal with. But what do you guys think? How do you think the Abyss operates? Do you think they have organized strategies and armies in order to bring down nations? Or do you think they just wing it by sending all manner of creatures and monsters to the nation? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Also, I do apologize that there wasn't that much videos for the past month. There were so many awesome games that came out this month, and I just wanted to take the time to play all of them. Plus, not to mention 2.5 was kinda lackluster in terms of content. Like, we're only a week in and we're already done with everything that they showed in the trailer except for the event. So yeah, it's a nice time to take a break and play all the other awesome games that came out this month. But yeah, thank you guys for watching and see you next video.